What's up, Cougar Nation, and welcome again aboard the Hype Train podcast. I'm your host, Joe Wheat. That's at Joey27 on Twitter. As always, my boy Hunter Miller today. No Trevor Levitt because we have heartbreaking news. He's a good dad. So he will be spending his evening on Paw Patrol while us 30-year-old men argue about money going to 18-year-old kids.
As the Hype Train was intended.
Exactly.
I asked him, does your 3-year-old daughter not know the drama that's currently taking place in Provo? Because if she does not, I promise you it's more riveting than any episode of Peppa Pig or Paw Patrol or anything like that.
Like, first of all,
I was
presented by Wilmer Riley Immigration Law. Just want to make sure that's abundantly clear. Like, where were you when you found out that BYU Athletics had an official count on Cougar Board?
Where was I? Well, I was in my bed, as probably most every other BYU fan, at 11 o'clock at night when the post dropped. And it instantly became the topic of group text, multiple group texts.
Like, how is that like the third craziest thing that's happened this week?
This week has been so nuts and so ridiculous that kind of became old news pretty quickly, at least within BYU circles. Unfortunately, nationally, that did become a story. And that was picked up by Front Office Sports that like BYU PR made an official statement on Cougar Board at 10:30 p.m. Not great. Like, there's so many things. I have a lot of thoughts on that one, actually.
We can get to all of them. Like, the frustrating, the weird part about that is, like, I saw the follow-up post made by the AD over like social media strategy, and I get the vision, right? Like, you want to go where the fans are.
No, not right.
Like, you couldn't like, that was you've had the account since February, and you didn't post anything on it until August. Like, you couldn't have soft launched that with like a less pivotal story, because right now what that looks like is Brian Santiago got in John McBride's ear and was like, you need to post this right now. People think I'm fired. Like, it very much came across as AD knows that rumors are swirling around him. AD thinks he's the most important person in the room. Therefore, the world must know that he's not effing leaving for now.
I don't know how it could be interpreted any other way, especially with the timing. Like, either A, it came down as a request, demand, urge, like whatever you want to call it, from someone higher up to make this statement. Because the statement was written and signed by the associate AD for communications, which is John McBride. I don't think that he's like in his pajamas at 10:30 p.m. just like scrolling Cougar Board and thinks to himself, like, I need to say something here. Especially, like you mentioned, if they supposedly had the account since February, maybe you started off with, hey, we're boots on the ground at the NCAA tournament. Why don't you ask us anything? Let's do a Q&A. Let's do a Q&A with Kevin Young live an hour before the NBA draft, where AJ Devonta is projected to be the number one pick. Why don't we do something over the summer with athletes as we gear up for the football season? What we heralded a week ago as the most high and highly anticipated, highly regarded, most pressure football season since 2008. Let's do something to gear up and get ready. No, the first debut post there. It's Cooper Flagg's at the top of mind because his debut NBA patch card just got pulled and it's supposed to be worth millions and millions of dollars. Rather than, the Cooper Flagg moment for BYU on Cougar Board isn't something that's positive, but rather 11 p.m. Guys, the AD has not been fired.
It's not even announced. It's not even an announcement. Like, nothing happened. Like, the entire point of the press release post, whatever you want to call it, was to say that nothing has changed since yesterday. Like, that's literally everything that you accomplish with that Cougar Board post could have been like the same message would have been received but on a much smaller scale, if you had just included him in the clips of the soccer game that was being played that night. Like if you just got a shot of Brian Santiago celebrating a goal during the blue and white scrimmage, and it like becomes very obvious, like, oh, he's not fired. He's on the sideline right now at the soccer game. But instead, we are going to message boards to dispel rumors. Like and by doing so, I texted the group chat like immediately, like $5 this ends up on message board geniuses tomorrow. And sure enough, it's on message board geniuses. It gets picked up by Front Office Sports. Matt Brown has a tweet about it. Like, Cameron in the chat is asking, where did that rumor that Brian Santiago got started? Like, where did that start? Where all things start. It was just a crazy Cougar board rumor that eventually escalated and escalated and escalated to the point where one random person was just tweeted out on social media, "Oh my gosh, he's fired." And then there's this huge storm that ends up with BYU Athletics doing one of the strangest things we've ever seen, which could end up being a massive blunder, especially if Santiago does not survive this.
To your point, Joe, like I was on the sidelines with him. President Reese. The statement reads, the title, "Lots of rumors swirling around here today." Like this is the official BYU Athletics official on Cougar Board. And the thing is, lots of rumors swirling around here today. "I just want to officially confirm that Brian Santiago's employment status with the university has not changed. He is still the AD. I was on the sidelines with him, President Reese, and Vice President Vorkink tonight for the BYU soccer game. Lots of great things happening in BYU athletics right now. Get ready for an incredible season. It's time to be a Cougar fan. Go Cougs." To your point, Joe, just post a photo from the BYU women's soccer account. Be like, great to have Brian Santiago, Vice President Vorkink, and President Reese with us tonight. Simple, easy, done. Wrap it with a little bow. Here's the problem. Here's the thing with the statement. If we're going to read between the lines, it says nothing about what the rumors were prior to the "he's been fired" rumor. Because the "he's been fired" rumor was like the we have no problems
with anything else. It's just this last rumor that we have an issue with.
Cameron Wilson in the comments, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. There was a lot of smoke for like 48 hours. And it wasn't until the "he's been fired" tweet, which I think I saw from like one person. And it wasn't, like literally there was
an anonymous Twitter account.
An anonymous Twitter account. "He's been fired." If the rumors I've heard are true, that's crazy. The rumors had been circulating. Like we had gotten texts some 72 hours prior to this statement being made that like something's up. And it wasn't just like I'm hearing this, like it was coming from credible individuals, and not only just one, but multiple individuals. And that's that there's a chance he could be fired, right? Like there's things going on in the athletic department that don't look great for Brian Santiago. There was never "he's been fired, he's going to be fired." It's just it's not looking great for him right now. He might be fired. And I think there's nothing in that statement that alludes or squashes those rumors in the least bit. The only rumor that's squashed is "he's been fired tonight," and it's 10:30 p.m. and he is still employed. Like that's the only thing. There's nothing like everything's great. There's been a lot of things talking about that he is not going to be the athletic director or he's in hot water. Like there's nothing that says that we look forward to the future with Brian Santiago at the, leading our athletic department. There's none of that. So if we're going to, take it for what it's worth and say, sure, he's still employed. He clearly is still employed. He made a point to go and shake every media member's hand at practice yesterday to show that he is still has his BYU staff credential. There's nothing that says, that makes me think that what we had been hearing previously that he might be in some hot water is wrong.
It reminds me of like it reminds me of the media observation things with Utah last year, where Kyle Whittingham just said completely unprompted, "Well, I'm not worried about our receivers being able to catch." Okay.
Well,
no one asked that question, Whittingham, but I would like to know more about that, please. Like it brought so much attention to something that was purely an extremely niche rumor. Like the only people that would know about this are people that are chronically online, that are either neck deep in Twitter, Coug Connect, or Cougar Board. Like that's your subset of people. And now I've got people that I haven't talked to in years texting me, "Yo, what's going on with BYU's athletic director?" Like it's such an unforced error. And and again, nothing that happened before that statement or has happened since has dispelled any of the negative energy that's around the athletic department. Like the statement comes out on Cougar Board. The next day, Brian Santiago is out shaking hands and kissing babies at the media observation window. Magically, by the way, BYU media observation is way longer than it normally is. They have access to so much more than they normally do. That I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. And then 2 days later, there's like, surprise, we just hired the associate AD at Kentucky to come do things, including general sports specific matters and such, is his like official job title. It was literally a hire of, we need this guy, we'll figure out what his responsibilities are later. Like nothing about none of the developments that have happened, and we'll get to Kalani's comments here in a second. Everything about this just screams Brian Santiago is in big, 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 big trouble. And if that's not true, BYU has done a horrible job containing the narrative. And now this has ballooned into such a massive story. I'm seeing fans from around the Big 12 saying, well, maybe I need to recalibrate my expectations for what BYU is going to be this season because there's so much weird stuff happening behind the scenes. It's such an unforced error that why can't BYU just be normal? Why do we have to do it to ourselves?
I think the Hype Train Twitter account was posted a couple of times of like the days since our last nonsense zero. Yeah. And it truly has felt that way for the last week. And I mean, John McBride and BYU Communications, like these are smart individuals. And that's what makes me think that this was a request that came from somebody else. Because if you're in the PR field, you don't want to make something a story that's not already a story, right? Like there's two kind of PR things, I guess you could call them, principles of PR, which is like one, if it's a small minor story, like you don't want to overreact and make it a story. And, piggybacking off of that, there's the Streisand effect of like trying to squash or suppress or, these stories or these rumors oftentimes is what draws the most attention to those rumors and to those stories. And that's exactly what happened to BYU. They're trying too hard to squash the rumor that, again, came from one or two accounts on X that Brian Santiago had been fired. No one nationally, no one outside of this like 1% of BYU fans are talking about Brian Santiago being fired. And now, because of one Cougar Board post, you've now Streisand affected the entire story, where you have front office sports, you have national reporters, you have Matt Brown, people outside of the BYU niche echo chamber of BYU athletics are now talking about Brian Santiago possibly being fired. And to me, that makes me think that this was not I'm just going to do this decision by the PR department, because it kind of goes counter to everything that you are taught and that about PR or crisis management in regards to this. So I'm going to give BYU comms, the benefit of the doubt that this wasn't a late night poor judgment, but rather it was an ask of them by someone else. Whether that is Brian Santiago, whether that's someone else in the athletic department, I don't know, but it feels like there's no other option. And I want to believe that this was how that came about.
I mean, who among us hasn't sent off an 11:30 tweet that we ended up regretting, right? Like, usually it's not from
the difference
official
is we're
account.
not, yeah.
And that the craziest thing about it is
we did get blocked by the official account once upon a time. So it might have just been a poor judgment. I don't know.
The craziest thing about it for me, though, is all it does is it gives license to people like us, people like I'm not going to put us in the same class as Mitch Harper, but it gives people like us, Mitch Harper, Jarom Jordan, again, 3 very equal levels of prestige in the BYU media game. It gives them permission to talk about it on official channels. Yep. Like if BYU is willing to talk about it, then we all have license to talk about it. And then you have license to go and ask Kalani Sitake about it. No one is asking Kalani Sitake a question 3 weeks before kickoff about a Cougar board rumor.
No, or a tweet or anything like that.
But it's like the timing of that, plus the Jarom Jordan video of Kalani talking about needing more resources from like 2 weeks ago. That was kind of weird timing. You have Kalani's comments today that we'll get to. Is everything about this? You're trying to say everything is fine, nothing is wrong here, but typically the fire truck doesn't show up to a house that is not on fire. Like they're not,
or at least that there's not like potential for, like there's some reason for the fire truck to be there. It's not just I'm in the neighborhood, right? I mean, we can play the Jarom Jordan video. I think we obviously should also credit that this was initially an interview with Ben Criddle and ESPN 960 Sports that was then reposted by Jarom, but Jarom's one his reposting is what got the most traction.
There's probably a collection of things that I'm looking at. It's like I think we've been we've been given the challenge of doing the most with the least, right? And so you lean heavily on culture to help you win. But I think there's a way that you can actually increase your chances on both. I think there's a way that you can get deep culture and be really strong as a football team. And there's an opportunity that you can get to players that you normally wouldn't have access to. And so we're trying to develop them. And sometimes it happens in development with the right resources that you have, sports science, stuff that Dr. Main does, and stuff that our training room does with Brett and everybody. I mean, with Phyllis in the strength and conditioning room, and then all the resources that we have available to them. That's key. So it's a bunch of factors that go into it, but I still want more resources for these guys, because, and for me, the frustrating part is like, yeah, we've been able to do so much, and everyone's like, okay, they keep doing it, but we can do way more at a faster rate. Yeah. And when I sit in this situation and I actually see that, I'm not going to be the one that's making high demands. This is very simple demands of people that our opponents have in the conference, and not even Texas Tech, the others, right? So if we can get an even playing field with that stuff, then I should be able to do more, and so whether that means more NIL, rev share, stuff like that, that's one thing. But we're not going to be, I said before, we're not going to be the highest bidder, but I'd like to have access to stuff like that. Yeah. And that's a reminder to the administration of that you can count on us to do things right and be responsible with the finances to get the right program in place. And so so the 22 is like, sometimes you just you got to go through these things. You're like, okay, this is going well. And then I've always just been appreciative of everything. But then when I look back at it, my agent tells me, hey, this is the stuff that everybody else has. It's like, we've been dealing with this. And this goes to like Lavelle, Croton. Oh, yeah. Bronco for sure. Yeah. Right. And it's like, it just gives me a whole different appreciation for them. And I don't think the fans, I'm not trying to like get sympathy from everyone. I'm just trying to tell you guys how real it is. And the fact that we're this close to making the playoffs, it's like, come on, let's not make the same mistakes that we've made in the past overall. And then let's keep investing in BYU football. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be in the form of just one thing, which is where everything's paying players. It's just a lot of different factors that go into it. Just please. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. And I know it's real because of the Penn State, the other schools that were talking to me, they kind of revealed it for me. And I'm not even asking for that stuff. Yeah. It's very simple stuff that's very attainable. And I'm trying to be selective here, just like, but I see it. Hopefully gets there where we want.
He sounds like he's about to cry. And I don't say that as a negative thing. Like, this is a man that is so clearly frustrated because he thought that everything was figured out. We all thought it was figured out. Like, this season is going to begin.
We were celebrating in the streets, like Kalani's staying, and we're giving football more resources, more funding. We're going to go harder on NIL. Like, that was the takeaway after those, 2 weeks of, will he stay? Will he leave? Is he going to bring everyone with him to Penn State? Is Jay Hill going to be the next head coach? Like, all of that, you're watching, refreshing Twitter, refreshing Coug Connect, refreshing Cougar Board. The biggest takeaway was he's here for the the long haul, and he's going to get the resources to turn BYU into this program. So it is a little jarring to be 3 months down the road and he's on radio talking about, hey, I found out during my negotiations with Penn State kind of how BYU was falling short. I thought we were going to get this stuff, and so far we haven't. It's
very much. Zone 2 Ironman said in the chat, this is a man who's peeked behind the curtain of what serious programs are spending and is realizing that BYU isn't as committed to the investment as he previously thought. Like, I think that's 100% true, but I think that's kind of true of the entire fan base, right? Like, the average BYU fan is a BYU fan. They're not a college football fan. They're not looking around they're looking around the country and thinking, well, yeah, BYU has the athletes to play with Ohio State just because they love BYU. And that's probably not true given the talent of the relative talent of the two rosters. I think it's true because I'm the hype train conductor, but I think there's some truth to that, to what Kalani said, that since the days of Lavelle, BYU has always done things a certain way. And it's a very insular program. Tom Homo has been here for 20 years. Tom Homo was the AD here for 20 years. And before that, he really hadn't done anything else in athletics administration except be at BYU. You have Dave Rose was a kind of a lifelong BYU guy. You had, all of these guys with Bronco Mendenhall, with Lavelle, with Gary Croton.
I was going to say Bronco probably would have been here 20 years too if he hadn't taken a different job.
Yeah, so it's a very, and like Brian Santiago, he spent his entire career here at BYU. It's kind of like what we saw with the coaching staff, where for years the BYU coaching staff only had guys on it that had coached at BYU before and after. Like, you had guys who were really just high school football coaches that were coaching at BYU because it's BYU, but no other schools really wanted them. For years, we had been recruiting like that too, where guys recruit BYU, we don't recruit guys. And I think the last, 3 years joining the Big 12 has taught, no, there's another caliber of athlete that you can chase. There's another caliber of coach that you can get now. And now Kalani's looking around and saying, okay, there's another level of resources that we can get here. We can get, if you guys want, I can get really nerdy into the numbers because I think it's important. I think it's important for us to understand, Kalani, I think, is being intentionally vague. He's talking about NIL and, quote unquote resources. I think as the average fan, we don't really know what that means. And again, understanding that at BYU, we don't really know what other programs are doing. So I went and looked at it. I probably spent way too much time that I should have been spending with my family to do a full audit of the entire Big 12, Penn State, and BYU to figure out where they're spending their finances. And BYU, in terms of revenue, with a half revenue share, this is the most recent financial data we have from the year ended 25. BYU is fourth in the Big 12 in revenue, but they're eighth in spending. And that's with a half revenue share. BYU football by next season is probably going to be the highest football earner in the conference. But in terms of spending, they're fifth behind Texas Tech, Utah, TCU, and Arizona State. Those schools combined outspend BYU on football by about $10 million a year. And BYU's reported budget, which again, maybe people are bucketing things differently, but this is what we have information. This is the information we have access to. BYU is being outspent by 4 of their conference peers, who BYU has been a better program since joining the Big 12 than 3 of those, or 2 of those. BYU is being outspent by them by about $10 million. And BYU's athletic budget is about $44 million for football. So that's you're 25%, you're 20% less than these other schools. So yeah, I'd be frustrated too. And then you look at it from like the uncomfortable question I don't think anyone really wants to talk about is, well, where does basketball fit into this? Because I do think that's a huge source of the frustration. Is Brian Santiago was a basketball guy. He was the AD over basketball. You listen to Kevin Young's press conference. He thanked Brian Santiago first. That dude loves hoops. That dude is very close with Ryan Smith, who loves hoops.
He played basketball at Provo High.
Like, yeah, huge basketball guy. And so, of course, he's going to give all the resources to basketball. Compared to those 4 schools, BYU spends $10 million less on football, but $5 million more than those schools in basketball. The ratio of basketball to football spend is those schools spend about 4.3 times as much on football as basketball, and BYU is spending about 2.3. They're closer to Kansas in that ratio than they are to Utah and Texas Tech. Like it's kind of embarrassing that BYU, a football school, this sport has always driven the bus on this campus. Always has. And I understand that basketball is the shiny toy, like basketball brought in AJ DeBonsa, and it became this really cool thing for a couple years. While football, like everyone was just kind of for a couple years saying, well, why can't we be more like the football pro? Like why can't the football program be more like the basketball program? Guys, the football program has been the more successful program over the last 2 seasons. Since Kevin Young got here, football is by far the better program with a much lower ratio of resources. And I think that like there's legitimate reasons to be frustrated if you're Kalani. And we can get into, more specifics about, one area that BYU can definitely improve is recruiting staff. Their recruiting staff is half the size of Texas Tech, half the size of Utah, half the size of Penn State. Penn State, their spend on football just about doubles BYU's. Granted, they make about double, triple the revenue, but that's what Kalani turned down to stay here. You can't get alligator arms on the check when this guy just turned down everything that the college football world has to offer to be at the school that he loves. And now you're kind of, again, you're getting alligator arms here saying, well, basketball needs this. Like, sorry, we need more time. Meanwhile, basketball literally can't spend all the money that they have.
Yeah. I was going to mention, like, BYU basketball this last year spent $15 million on their roster, I think is the number. We don't know for certain, but that seems to be the number that's floated around. If you average that out over a roster, that's $1 million per player for what ended up being a one and done in the NCAA tournament team. And that's not to say that, that's not to poo-poo the basketball team. I want both to be good. I want, this is the BYU hype train. I want BYU football to win the Big 12, go to the college football playoff, and then I want the basketball team to immediately turn around and go to the Final Four. But the unfortunate reality is that you have a certain amount of funds that you need to allocate towards the 2 programs. Kalani and the football team have given no reason as to why they should not be getting the right allotment and the right ratio of funds. I think you can build a successful basketball team, as we've seen with other institutions and other programs, with that ratio that you talked about, Joe. You talk about Kansas being, a situation where BYU's spending at a higher ratio than even Kansas when it comes to like football versus basketball. I know Kansas just built a whole new football stadium, right? And so it's tough to see a football coach that's clamoring for the resources and stayed at BYU because they were promised the resources. Now, we never knew exactly what those resources were promised to be. You mentioned it here, Joe, in this tweet. 2 questions. I don't know the answer, but to what was promised to Kalani, that hasn't been fulfilled. He never has explicitly come out and said, I was promised X, Y, and Z, and so far I haven't gotten Y and Z. it's all left to speculation, but clearly something is upset Kalani, and he doesn't seem to be trying to hide it very much.
And to be fair to Santiago and the athletic department, we don't know those answers. Like, at the end of the day, we kind of have to make educated guesses here of what Kalani could be asking for. But if what he's saying is like, we're asking for simple stuff, recruiting, like recruiting, BYU has 4 recruiting staff, 4 people in charge of recruiting the entire country. Penn State has 8. Utah has 8. Texas Tech has 8. Like, that's a really easy place to start and say, okay, we're going to get your staff on par or even exceed that with the rest of the country. Your recruiting budget, BYU's total men's sports recruiting budget is actually probably higher than those other schools. But BYU is also sending, basketball recruiters on international trips every other week to go scout the 6th guy off the bench in the Polish 3rd league. Like, it's
how is basketball have the resources to scout Poland, China?
The fact that we know who Jakub Urbaniak is, he doesn't start in a real league. He's 23 years old. But no disrespect, like, once Coug, always a Coug. But the only reason, the reason we know who he is because BYU has all of those resources to go and find these guys that none of us have ever heard of. And BYU football is like, can we just have one guy? Like, can we have more than one person covering all of Southern California? Like, is that possible? Like, and to Kalani's point about being good stewards of the money, BYU's football has proven that they're going to be good stewards of the money. You look at where they have spent their money in recruiting. I'm looking at like the top of the roster of BYU's top 28 players, like highest rated players on the team this year, according to 24/7 Sports. 23 of them are on the 2 deep this year. And the 5 that are not on the 2 deep this year are all true freshmen. It's like your Jaron Pulas, your, Batmu Italo. We're looking at Terrence Sarian, like guys who are extremely talented, but are just too young to really make a contribution this year. That's a crazy hit rate of scouting guys, and those guys panning out enough to where they're really contributing on this football team. BYU basketball last year played Xavier Staten probably $1 million to average 0.6 points per game. Who knows how much they paid Moot Davis to do absolutely nothing for you. Like, there is no evidence.
I think that also was between, I saw around like 900,000. I'm sure it probably got upwards of $1 million. But yeah, you mentioned Xavier Staten.
You spent
$1 million on a guy. You spent $1 million. BYU basketball spent $1 million on a guy that was unplayable. They were playing a 6'6" Kadeem Mboop over him, and he was getting $1 million. You know what, like, the going rate in college NIL for a top tier running back goes is like 300 to 800,000. You could have gotten a significant depth piece, a 3rd down running back to help shoulder some of this load from LJ Martin for 1/3 of what it cost you to have Xavier Staten sit on the bench in conference play. And I think that's where Kalani Sitake's frustration stems from, is you see how much money BYU basketball just spent and spent on players that were not even just a positive, but at times a negative for BYU basketball. And you saw them go one and done. And you're now asking for these resources that were allegedly promised during contract negotiations when you decided to stay rather than go to Penn State. And now he's again, allegedly not getting what was promised him. And so I see how that's frustrating. And I see why that puts a strain on a relationship that, by all accounts, was already not great to begin with. Ever since Brian Santiago took over as athletic director, there's always been this, lingering narrative that Kalani and Brian Santiago aren't on the best of terms. And it seems like it's only gotten worse and worse. I think with the Penn State stuff, it reached before this week reached its peak of Kalani does not like Brian Santiago. He does not want to stay at BYU with Brian Santiago as the AD. Like, that was a lot of the chatter surrounding these Penn State contract negotiations and trying to decipher if Kalani was going to stay or leave or what was going to happen to the BYU program. There was rumors of, Kalani Brian Santiago already tabbing Jay Hill as the next head coach. He was fine with Kalani leaving and he would just hire Jay, and he assumed everything would kind of go on and BYU would continue to win. I think you now have a situation where Kalani stayed. He stayed despite not having this great relationship with the guy who's supposed to be his boss. He stayed because he was promised to get these certain things from that person, and now it's not happening. And now what was already a frail and fragile relationship seems to be completely shattered, much like LeBron's legacy has been shattered, Nate Slack. By continuing to ring chase on what's now his fifth ring chase, and he still can't get more than Jordan. That's how it affects LeBron's legacy.
Absolutely not. No one has a greater legacy of doing more with less than LeBron James.
That's the fakest news I've ever heard.
Before we continue, we do want to shout out our sponsor, Will Know O'Reilly Immigration Law, our presenting sponsor, great partner. We love having them. Immigration law can be overwhelming, but Will Know O'Reilly is here to help. With 26 years of experience, a former immigration officer on the team, they've earned a reputation of excellence serving actors, athletes, major companies, and families. They speak 10 languages, including Spanish, and consultations are always free. And for Hype Train listeners, you have free priority consultations. Go to willknoworeilly.com, mention the Hype Train when you reach out. Will Know O'Reilly, peace of mind when it matters most. We also want to give a shout out to a new sponsor of ours, Thread Wallets. Really excited to partner with these guys. They are promoting their new collegiate collection. I have had a Thread lanyard on my keys for about the last a BYU Thread lanyard for 3 years now. It's great quality. Gives me as someone who always loses their keys, it gives me something I can't possibly take my eyes off of, which is always that BYU blue. Please use the code HYPETRAIN15 for 15% off your first order. Big Thread wallets, guys, so really love them. Also want to shout out Letterman Golf. Again, HYPETRAIN15 will get you 15% off your order. Best club heads in the game. And finally, Odeon Menswear. Look good, feel good, so that you can do good in the biggest moments of your life. 15% off your suit today. So here's where I want to be fair.
Go ahead.
So if I can just be fair, I think there's some things that Kalani wants that are realistic and some things that are not realistic. I think, like he mentioned, NIL. Everyone and their dog wants more NIL. And frankly, I think like BYU doesn't have the most money in the country, and he acknowledged that. Like, they're not going to be the highest bidder for teams, like for guys. But they got more than they're legally allowed to spend. Right now, the revenue share limit is $20.5 million. According to The Athletic, the average Big 12 basketball roster this year cost $13.8 million. According to ESPN, just the starters of a football team on average for a P4 starter is about $16 million. So your salary cap is $20 million, but somehow the average P4 team is spending $29 million combined on those two rosters. If you can figure out how the math works on that, be my guest. But I think BYU is being extremely cautious with how they're dealing with the NCAA clearinghouse. And I think that's one area where both the basketball and football programs need to be a little bit more patient. Is BYU isn't going to do things that are sketchy. Like if it ever came out that BYU was breaking NCAA rules to win football games or basketball games, that would be a huge blight on the athletics department and cause major ripples that go all the way up to Salt Lake. Like, I understand why BYU is not going to get too risky there, but I also understand why the coaches are frustrated that, like, hey, we have all this money and we literally can't spend it because the school isn't allowing us to spend it. Like, I understand that frustration too, but that goes well above even Santiago, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if BYU was ever caught doing anything sketch in terms of paying players or misallocating funds, that sort of thing, I think you'd have SMU death penalty type repercussions where you go from this super competitive program to, probably being in the dumps for a while. So BYU is always going to try to do everything above board by the letter of the law. That's just the reality of being a church run school, and a BYU fan. But Josh Erickson asks, what happens now? This feels big enough that you can't just ignore it. Is Santiago or is Kalani gone at the end of the year? I don't think Kalani's gone if it's up to BYU.
Oh, of course. They would choose Kalani over
Kalani leaving is Kalani's choice.
Yeah. I mean, play the clip. We'll see how Kalani, what are your thoughts on your relationship with Brian Santiago?
Kalani, how is your relationship with Brian Santiago right now?
Yeah, I'm easy to. How's my relationship with everybody? I'm easy to get along with, as long as you just take care of our football team and take care of the boys. The focus has got to be on the players. So the focus shouldn't be on my relationship with anybody other than my relationship with these players and being their leader. And the great thing is we have amazing leadership on the team, so I don't have to do much. I mean, they make my job a lot easier. I just got to make sure we can avoid all the distractions. So that's my job. I'm trying to make sure these guys get all the attention, because the attention needs to be on them going into the season, So I've made comments and talked about things in the past. But once the season starts, I'm all about the boys and all about what the fans expect. And so we're trying to meet all our fans' expectations, and that's what I'm working on right now.
I'd say the relationship is pretty bad.
He hates that man. Holy crap. He hates that. Like, what a bar, by the way, to say, guys, I'm easy to get along with as long as you take care of our football program. Holy crap.
Look, if the relationship was good, he would have just been like, it's good. Even if the relationship wasn't great and was on the rocks, he would have been like, yeah, I have a good relationship with him. Do you know how bad the relationship has to be for him to be like, well, how's my relationship with anyone? I'm a pretty good, easy guy to get along with.
And he's right, by the way.
That's the problem. He hit the nail on the head. He's absolutely
pulling out
right.
Receipts. Like, guys, am I a difficult guy to get along with? Like, oh my gosh, that is like, I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress. Like,
that answer was his version of Not Like Us. He's Kendrick Lamar, and Brian Santiago was Drake. Like, that's
I don't
answer
think
is that version.
Like, if Brian Santiago couldn't survive like the previous stuff, he cannot survive that media session. He really can't. Like, when that's the answer coming from Kalani Sitake, that relationship feels so untenable that building isn't big enough for the two of them. And honestly, I kind of get it. Like, there's so many rumors that fly around about Brian Santiago that I have no idea what's true and what's not. I've never met the guy. I've seen him in passing a few times. He was nice to me, but like, he's the athletic director. What is he going to do? Just say F you as I'm walking down the street?
Shoulder check you in Helaman halls.
But it is so clear that he has done everything wrong in regards to the football program. That has always been a strained relationship. But here's the thing: is like the relationship to BYU.
I don't know if I'd go that far. Everything wrong in terms of the program? No. Everything wrong in terms of his relationship with Kalani Sitake? Yes. Like BYU has been a successful. You don't win back-to-back double-digit wins if your athletic director is doing everything wrong. I think, some credit where credit's due, but I absolutely wholeheartedly agree if we're saying he's mismanaged his relationship with Kalani Sitake as poorly as he could. Yes, I think that's true.
So it's like in dating, if you have I never had two people that I was dating at the same time, but hypothetically, if you ever had two people that you were dating and one of those people was all about you and the other person was out of your league, most people are going to spend most of their time and investment on keeping that person that's out of their league happy. Like, that's because the other person is always going to be there. They're the safe option. They're the backup plan, whatever. to me, it feels like Kalani has always been that loyal person that was going to stay by you through thick and thin. And it allowed BYU to relax on what they were willing to give him. Meanwhile, Kevin Young's for the streets, man. Like, Kevin Young has no ties to BYU. He's 100% an NBA guy. I totally understand that in his introductory press conference, he said he wanted a change of lifestyle. Then why are we hearing his name in every single NBA head coach opening that there's been in the last 2 years? Like, it is, for me, I think the athletic department has hitched their wagon to, this guy is so far out of our league that we need to do whatever it takes to protect that relationship. We are going to give him everything he wants so that he still likes us, because we know that Kalani wants to be the Polynesian Lavelle and is just going to stay no matter what we do. That's changed. Like, you can't get alligator arms when the check comes at dinner with your wife because you bought your side piece a diamond necklace. Like, it's just, that is not something that you can do and keep a person as good as Kalani. And I don't know, we love basketball. Like, we're a BYU sports podcast. We're not trying to say that BYU just needs to stop contributing to college basketball, but in terms of history, in terms of finances, in terms of money management, BYU football is where you want to invest your time and money. And so, and the ironic part is with Brian Santiago, I think Jay Hill was that same kind of guy, where he was the guy that was out of BYU's league for some reason. I don't know why people think that, but he was the guy for so long that BYU fans were thinking he's the one that we need to protect at all costs. If it means Kalani walks, we got to make sure that we keep Jay Hill. And I think in that whole Penn State saga, that's essentially kind of what happened. Part of the reason the relationship got frayed is that once Brian got word that Sitake was looking elsewhere, he goes to Jay Hill and offers him the job, saying, hey, if Kalani leaves, will you take it? Word of that gets back to Kalani, and now Kalani feels like he's being pushed out. So the irony is, I really feel like if Jay Hill was the head coach at BYU, the investment problems wouldn't be a question. Like, I think Jay Hill would get everything he wants, because again, he's an outsider it's kind of like Snapback Sports getting all the benefits while the Hype Train podcast can't even get tickets to a game. It's very much, they've really taken for granted their most loyal voices in favor of people that really don't care about them on that level.
That one hurts. That you had to end that on a personal note.
We're not angry.
My
Please
goodness.
don't print that I was angry.
It does feel like it's an irreparable relationship. I don't know where the two of them go from here. I don't know if this ever gets to the point where it's chummy and happy and, like Tom and Kalani was at times. I think it certainly, through a lot of hard work, could get to a point where it's respectable, but I don't think it's ever going to be a relationship where they show up in the morning looking forward to seeing the other one in the hallway or at the water cooler. And I do think that if ever it came, push came to shove, Kalani feels like the guy that's on firmer ground at BYU. Again, and
I think if push came to shove and the church had to choose between the two, they're picking Kalani every single time. And they did, by the way. Like, Kalani no longer directly reports to Santiago anymore because of that.
That's Exhibit A, and Exhibit B is the fact that we started this podcast on 20 minutes of rumors that Santiago had already been fired, and Cougar Board posts about it. And if he was on solid ground and everyone seemed happy to have him around, I don't think that ever would have been a rumor to begin with. So clearly the tea leaves are there that it's not a good relationship. They do not look forward to working with each other, and scarcely do, because at the behest of Kalani Sitake during contract negotiations, when he decided to stay at BYU rather than go to Penn State. And if it continues down the path that it's currently on, it feels like a situation where BYU is looking for a new athletic director. So, yeah. Josh asks, odds that Santiago is gone before the first game. That first game's in less than a month. That feels fast.
It's not gonna happen. Like, there will not be a press release that comes out at any point that's like Brian Santiago has been relieved of his duties.
There will be a Cougar Board post at 11 p.m.
And by the way, I was gonna say, once that Kalani quote dropped today, where was the Cougar Board post saying, "Hey guys, everything is fine, no worries. Here's what he's asking for. We're working on it." Like, where's the Cougar Board post on that? That's what the people want to hear. That's news.
If indeed this BYU Cougar Board account existed since February, where was it during all the Kalani going to Penn State stuff? Like, that's what. Again, we're coming full circle. We started the episode on this, so if you're just joining us, go back and listen to the first 15 minutes. There was 100 excuses to have made a post on Cougar Board using that official account. I don't know why the first one came at 10:30 p.m. in regards to rumors that from a person on Twitter that Santiago had already been fired. And that's like the 10th thing that makes me think it wasn't a BYU comms decision. It came externally from that team.
I mean, to answer the question, I don't think it happens before the game. I'm probably a little too emotional right now, but
you got them all hopped up.
I think it's more like at this point, I think to your point, Hunter, like the BYU would choose Kalani every single time, but I fear that Kalani is like the things that he was saying today about like, as long as I'm the head coach at BYU, stuff like that doesn't inspire confidence.
No,
it doesn't make me feel like this seems like a guy who had one foot out the door in December and now may be completely out the door. And I hope that's not true, but when have we ever seen BYU fire someone like this? Like, maybe he just sneakily takes a job at the Ryan Smith Entertainment Group, and you know, it's not officially a firing, but it's more relieved of his duties. But like, I don't know. To me, I don't know if this can be fixed in 3 months. Like the frustration that he's feeling with the administration, I don't know how except for just giving him literally everything that he's asking for, which you're already contractually obligated to do, supposedly. I don't know how this gets fixed before December. And at that point, maybe USC is open. Like, again, I don't want to be like doom and gloom. I want Kalani here forever, but man, it feels like
the relationship is so poor that should another big head coaching job open up and they approach Kalani, there will not be any sort of back and forth like there was with Penn State. It will be a accept on location kind of thing where he will absolutely take that job. I think it's near 0%, if not exactly 0%, that he'd be fired before the first game. I think that a press release from the Utah Jazz saying that Brian Santiago has accepted a position inside, either the Jazz front office or Smith Entertainment Group, some sort of job there, and BYU wishes him well. I think the reality that happens is not 0. I think that's far more likely. I don't know what the likelihood is of that, but I agree with you, Joe. It could be hey, I think it's best if you find somewhere else. You have a good relationship with Danny and Ryan. We'll work together to find a different spot for you to go. And it'll be messaged as hey, Brian took this other opportunity, not Brian was let go.
So, keep chopping, said in the chat, just not sure where these resources are supposed to come from. That's an honest question. BYU's operating expense ratio is nearly at 100% after the huge Satake raise. Honestly, no, it's not. Like, candidly, BYU Athletics made a $16 million surplus last year. The football program made a $7 million surplus. Like, the next closest program is 10 million, and most of the 5 of the athletic departments in the Big 12 are operating at a loss right now. And that's never going to happen at BYU. But that's all of that, by the way, is before BYU gets a full revenue share. Next year, BYU will be the highest revenue earner in the Big 12. There's no reason why they shouldn't be at the top of the spending of the Big 12 as well. Like, I get it.
Where
BYU has
where does BYU rank in football spend?
5th. So they're behind.
Go ahead.
So they're behind Texas Tech, Utah, TCU, and Arizona State. Those are the 4 schools that spend more on football than BYU does. So it's like, to BYU's credit, they've come a long way. Their total athletic department spend since 2022 has more than doubled. So,
but on the flip side of that, the Athletic Business came out with an article listing BYU as the 3rd most valuable football program. So if you're 3rd most valuable, which is, again, like, it's not apples to apples,
but that's from a revenue. That's like the valuable thing. That's all revenue. And by the way, we don't have to get into it. Utah is extremely creative with how, like, what they consider football revenue, because they're reporting a $44 million football surplus and a $4 million athletic department surplus. So I don't know where along the line they're losing $40 million. We should probably hire Pablo Torre to go find that out. But
that's all going to Kawhi Leonard.
Aspiration.
It's all going to Kawhi Leonard.
So to the point, like, is there room to grow? Yeah. And like, BYU has the money to do it. Like, the NIL thing, I think there is a ceiling on that until the Protect College Sports Act gets passed, and that the revenue share ceiling goes from 20 million to 48 million. That'll solve a lot of BYU's problems. Like, I don't think BYU can get to that $50 million number. Like, that seems extremely high, but they'll never, ever, but neither can a lot of schools. Like, the coaches will never have to fight with the university to try and get an NIL deal approved ever again. And I think that's a positive thing. But even from like an athletic surplus, if you're behind those schools by $10 million and you have $16 million of surplus in the athletic department, and you're going to get another $16 million from revenue share next year, there's really no reason why BYU can't up their spend. It's really just a question of where do you want to allocate the resources? Because like BYU, like, I hate to break it to you guys, BYU cannot be a national championship contender in both football and basketball. And people say, well, it's so much easier to win a national championship in basketball. No, it's not. You have one off shooting night, you get bounced from the tournament. You lose one guy from that roster, and your season is over, like we saw with Richie last year.
Yeah,
and the rosters cost the same. It's not like basketball is a cheaper roster. You're spending $15 million on 15 guys, while in football, you're spending $15 million on 75. Like, there really is no comparison in terms of where these resources should be allocated. And I'm not saying stop investing altogether, but we need to stop acting like BYU making a Final Four is going to move the needle for the athletic department in any meaningful way. If like BYU making the playoff this year will have more ramifications for the athletic department than BYU making the Final Four. Like, who were the Final Four teams 2 years ago? I could probably name all 12 playoff teams off the top of my head. And granted, I love both sports.
But
like, who cares?
I probably can't name the Final Four this year.
Yeah, like, who cares?
It was like 6 months ago.
Like, college basketball is relevant for like 6 weeks out of the year. And again, it sounds like I am trashing on basketball, thing, but like, it's just,
here's the unfortunate thing with college basketball is that the Final Four national championship isn't even the most relevant weekend of that specific tournament.
Yeah, it's the first weekend, right?
Yeah, like the first weekend is what people care about. Like, that's where the excitement is at its peak. Dare I say, like, the Final Four weekend is third on like the college basketball weekend list. You have the selection Sunday, then you have your first weekend of the tournament, and then you have the Final Four, and that's probably just above feast week.
And
like,
so,
it's just it's not the same.
In some ways, it's the fans' fault because we're sitting here in August and people are still worried about where BYU center is going to come from. Like, who cares? I really don't.
We did care a month ago.
And maybe that's just because we had nothing else to talk about.
Then fall camp started and we didn't care anymore.
And maybe I'll care more in March. But like that last exit in the first round turned me off so much to BYU basketball that I think Kalani should have the authority to determine the NIL budgets for both programs. Like I trust Kalani so much with his spend that I would trust him to cut that cake.
The unfortunate reality is that BYU football is like 3 weeks away.
And this is what we're talking about.
I finally watched fall camp clips. I saw the most beautiful throw from Bear Bachmeyer to Legend Glasgow.
Legend Glasgow, huh? Let's talk about that.
As he's being covered by BYU's projected NFL draft pick corner. And instead of leading the podcast with that, we've talked about Kalani and Brian Santiago for the last 61 minutes. And that, I think, is the second most unfortunate reality of this. The first being that Kalani Sitake is no longer going to stay at BYU, no questions asked. He is, as long as this persists. The second most unfortunate reality is we should have watched that Isaiah Glasker clip 100 times on repeat for the first 20 minutes of this podcast. And we have not mentioned his name until the 101:30 mark. And that, to me, is disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. It's the worst thing that Brian Santiago has done at BYU football.
It's time for a palate cleanse.
If you've stuck with us to this part, you have earned this video.
So while you pull that up, like Josh is saying, how big of a distraction is this to the players and coaches? I actually don't think it's too crazy. Like Jerem Jordan said it in his Coup Connect interview, like, please go listen, both friends of the show, that players are so tired that they don't really care that any of this is going on. Like Jake Brandon on that same interview was saying that they had about 18 freshman football players at their house yesterday, and they were calling girls on their phone to see like who had the most riz. Like these guys are not online.
If you think a 19-year-old cares as much as us BYU fans about the athletic director drama,
like go watch the video of them like hitting a water bottle off the social media girl's head. Like, these guys aren't plugged into, I wonder, what the relationship is like with Santiago. Like, I genuinely think that it won't impact it too much until maybe late in the season. But the other thing to keep in mind with this is, in order for Kalani to get one of those bigger jobs this offseason, if that's truly what he wants to do, he needs to have a really good year this year. Like if they go 7-5, no one is trying to get BYU's head football coach after a season like that.
Well, and he did a tremendous job on that question from Jay Drew in the clip that we saw from Jackson on Twitter. He did a tremendous job of changing the subject of how do you get along with Brian Santiago to these guys are great leaders of this team. And which I think speaks volumes to, the kind of players that BYU has this year, but B, tremendous deflection. And this is coming from someone who on his professional football team is also going through head coaching drama, in which Mike Vrabel was asked this week about his family counseling over the offseason, and he deflected that question into an answer about offensive line run blocking schemes. So tremendous job by both head coaches. Great. This clip, again, why we have not watched this on repeat. Just check it out.
Honestly, like to really lighten the mood, we should have just had it in picture on the bottom right-hand side of the screen the entire time to really just lighten the mood. The other thing I thought was hilarious is that during that entire clip of Kalani, he's holding a piece of paper with his name on it. Like it was a high school, like a elementary school award ceremony.
That's just like his thing on media day, I think. Look at that. That's number 0 in coverage, Joe.
Dude.
That's not number 27 or 34 in coverage. That's number 0.
So all of Saturday night in the group chat, we were talking about whether or not Bear could throw deep outside the numbers. That's a 30-yard touch pass on a corner dropped in the bucket. And since then, BYU has posted a few more clips of him throwing outside the numbers to the point where I'm thinking, maybe Bear for Heisman in the chat isn't too far off with his name there.
I mean, I talked about it. You in the text group ranked your position groups by strength, or that you were most confident in. I don't know if you remember exactly what they were off at the top of your head.
So it's going to be an article series. So podcast listeners get first dibs.
You don't. Well, you don't. I mean, save it for the article, but just tell me where quarterbacks were.
I put quarterback at 5th. So I think I had receivers. So in reverse order, receivers at the bottom, D tackles, tight ends, edge, safety, quarterback, corner.
Nope.
Yeah, number one. Oh, O-line, corner, line. Running back, linebacker.
Correct.
So I had quarterback 5th, Joe, which really says more about the talent on the rest of the roster than it does about Bear.
My one response was 2 best NFL draft prospects are 5 and 6 on the list. Interesting.
And again,
after seeing that clip, vindication.
We spent like an hour talking about whether or not Bear had an NFL arm. Those are NFL throws that he's making in those clips. And like, I know they're very carefully curated practice clips. I know he threw an interception in that same practice. I don't care. That is an NFL throw.
You say carefully curated clips. I've seen enough clips from Deshaun Watson from the Cleveland Browns from training camps to know if a player is playing poorly and throwing lots of picks, we're gonna see them on social media. For goodness sake, the Philadelphia Eagles posted a clip today of Jalen Hurts throwing an absolute duck over the middle from a clean pocket for an interception. So I don't think that BYU is necessarily combing through the footage to just find the 2 touchdown passes. I think this is genuinely how he's playing in these practices. And I mean, the one knock on him, he did basically everything right as a true freshman for BYU this past season, except for throws of 25 yards plus outside the numbers. I think it was the stat. He was like 2 for 23 on those kinds of throws. Joe, if he's got that throw, throw in his pocket now.
So the Rogers ball, like the throw to Legend was a dot. The throw to Saliapaga down the sideline could not have thrown that any better. There was another throw that was published yesterday where he's escaping the pocket, throws a laser to JoJo in the corner of the end zone. Like that is an NFL throw. Like I got in an argument with argument with Bud Elliott this week of the Cover 3 podcast. Really smart guy. He thinks BYU's passing game is well below average in the Power 4. Dog. Bear can sling it. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback that his arm taps out at about 50 yards, but he can also throw like a 35-yard laser over the middle.
Joe, he was 18 years old.
I know.
He was the best true freshman quarterback.
In a world where Jaron Saga exists.
And like Bryce Underwood was heralded as like a freshman Heisman candidate.
Malik Washington.
He is that dude. He is so like, of course, the 18-year-old kid's not going to throw it on a rope 60 yards outside the numbers. Like that's not going to happen.
And he's probably the 6th best player on the roster currently.
No.
No.
He's
Volatile. So it's Volatile, LJ,
then Bear.
Probably Kate Uluave.
Nope, then Bear.
Ooh.
Then Bear. Number 3. And the only reason he's not higher is because I'm grading him off of his true freshman season. I think by game 2 or 3, he could be number 1.
So I think objectively,
if these throws that he's making in practice,
Evan,
if he starts doing that in game,
he's
better
100%.
than Evan.
But like
he's better than
Evan, Bruce, LJ, and Volatile are all top 10 in the country at their position.
Yep.
Bears probably, well, I mean, if he's making throws like that, he might be a top 10 quarterback. He was as a true freshman, he was what, 17th, 16th in QBR, something like that.
Joe, as an 18-year-old true freshman, he led BYU.
He didn't even have an off season, dude. He got here in June.
He had 3 weeks of practice. He had injuries. He had not the best offensive line. The pressure rate was what, 40th?
Yeah.
And you want to be higher on that list. So the 40th it's not a good ranking. And he led BYU to the Big 12 conference championship game. He only lost to one team all season long as an 18-year-old true freshman. He is absolutely the third best player on this BYU football team as it stands right now. He's definitely. I started to get ahead of myself. I was going to say he's definitely the most important, but then I remember I would say LJ is the most important. Bear is number 2.
So let's just say hypothetically, you turn 8 of his 11 touchdowns on the ground into passing touchdowns, and his numbers are 23 touchdowns, passing, 7 interceptions. Are we talking about him any differently as a thrower?
I mean, no, you, yeah.
Probably. This is funny because I was first on the Bear train, but again, every fall camp there always seems to be that one throw that we see in these practice clips where we're like, oh heck yeah, that's the guy. We've had 3 of them in the last 2 days.
He mentally was so far ahead of schedule last year. He physically running the ball and just stature-wise and toughness was so far ahead last year as a true freshman. The one thing that we didn't see, again, was those deep throws outside the numbers. That's first the hardest throw to make. There's guys who are seniors who have started for 4 years who probably can't make those throws. There's not a single reason in the world for me to think that with Bear Bachmeier, after another offseason, getting bigger, we saw the fake AI photos from a Utah fan of how much Mo Bettas he was eating. I hope that's true, and I hope he was bulking up with some steak and getting that arm strength up so that he can make those throws. He cerebrally and physically, he is absolutely built in a lab to play quarterback. The one thing is just that accuracy, which I think absolutely is something he can build on and get better at. And if that catches up to the rest of his talent, look out.
It's really only accuracy on one kind of throw. Everywhere else,
yardage across the middle, he was fantastic.
With 20 yards and in, he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country last year. I think he was 6th in yards.
Where would he have ranked? I don't know if you can do this real quick. But where would he have ranked in QBR? You said he was 17th in the country?
So
in quarterback rating?
QBR is hard. So QBR is more of a EPA kind of stat. If you want passer rating.
In his passer rating, he ranked 16th, 17th. Where would he have ranked if he...
That the QBR one includes running, but I think I know what you're asking for here.
I want to know where he would have ranked in quarterback efficiency had he even completed 40% of those 2 for 23 passes.
Okay, give me his. I need you to feed me his stats. We're doing this live. This is when the hype train is at its best. Is when we're just talking ball. So I need passing attempts first.
Okay, hold on. I'm pulling up the stats. You're seeing how the sausage is made right now. For the live listeners and for the listener, I'm not going to edit this. So even if you're listening to this 2 days from now, you're also seeing how the sausage is made. Bear Bachmeier in 2025, you want attempts?
Yep.
First, 387.
So 387 completions.
251.
251. How many extra passes are we calling?
So he was 2 for 23. Let's say I don't know what the national average is, but let's say he even was just
It's probably about 40%.
So let's say it was 40%. 40% of 23 would be what? 8 or 9 for 23? Let's say 9 for 23. So an extra 7. So 258 completions.
Okay, 258 completions. For those 7, we'll call it 20. Let's call it 30 passing yard. There are 30 yards for each of those completions. So
an extra 7, so 210 yards.
Yep. And what was he at?
So that would be 3,243 yards if we're counting those.
Okay.
210 yards.
I'll do my passing touchdowns, and
should we say one of those would have been, 2 of those would have been touchdowns?
Let's just say he gets
30-yard passes.
Let's say he gets to 20 touchdowns through the air.
Okay.
His passer rating would have been 150.1.
Okay. And where would that have ranked?
Or sorry, 150.5.
Passer ratings, he would have been 150.5. 150.5 would have put him 6 overall after Drew Mesketmaker, Darian Mensah, Trinidad Chambliss, Carson Beck, and Jaden Mayava.
Yeesh.
Which every single one of those guys is like being talked about that are still here are being talked about as potential first-round NFL draft picks and Heisman contenders. Darian Mensah at Miami now, he's the Heisman favorite. Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the first or second draft pick.
So let's have 2 quick over-unders before we call it a night. Over-under, okay. Bear Bachmeier 150 passer rating this year.
Over.
I think so too. I think he was at 140 last year. Like another year in the program, this schedule is pretty manageable.
Actually, I goofed. That's on me.
I mean, it's still like 150 is still pretty freaking good.
Here's the problem, though. It's showing me like guys who had like 28 attempts. 150. You're seeing the sausage is made. But still, I will say that passer rating is on par with those quarterbacks. So those quarterbacks I listed, Darian Mensah, 153.6, Trinidad Chambliss, 155.3, Carson Beck, 157 flat, Jaden Mayava, 157.8. It's like that's the quarterbacks that he would be grouped with. I said I wasn't going to edit this. I might have to go edit this now. But the point still stands that if he puts this exact same amount of the same tape on film, the same statistics, he just increases that deep ball outside the numbers efficiency, even just to what college football average was at 40%, that turns him as a true freshman into the same rated quarterback as the guy that was in the national championship game and was a 3rd-round NFL draft pick. The 3 guys that are being talked about as Heisman favorites and potential first-round NFL draft picks in April of 2027. And that would be him as a true sophomore. He would still have at least 1 more year to go before even being able to go to the NFL draft.
I don't know.
You add Legend Glasgow now.
So that's the second one. Over under Legend Glasgow 600 yards receiving.
You had asked me this time last week. I would have said under.
I would have too. I was thinking like Parker
Legend Glasgow hype train.
Dude, I was thinking like 2nd year Parker Kingston level production. I think he's already better than Parker was as a junior. Or as a sophomore. Okay, BYU stats man to the rescue. I dug into some of the play-by-play data, calculated a 150.9 rating if he completed half of his deep misses. Estimated 3 could have gone for touchdowns if completed, would have been 24th in the FBS.
Thank
That's
you,
pretty
Stats
good,
Man.
though. For a guy that's a run-first quarterback.
But again, like that's all those guys that we mentioned were in the 150s for rating.
So Bear for Heisman saying 600 easy if he fills that Kingston role. 600 yards is like 50 yards a game. Like,
and 30 of those, it's going to be 1 30-yard completion from Bear a game.
So it's like
air yards.
Do we think he can have 4 catches a game?
We're saying junior year, like 2024 Parker Kingston?
Yeah.
2024 Parker Kingston, you want to take a stab in the dark on his receiving yards?
He had 26 targets all year. He had like 200 yards.
He had 196 yards.
Yeah.
And he was talked about coming back next year as like he's going to be this key piece, which he was. But that just shows you how far ahead in his development Legend Glasgow is.
So here's the larger point on the receivers. Everyone is saying, these receivers, like BYU, not going to be great because the receivers are so inexperienced. Neither were last year's receivers.
Other than Chase.
Like we were all hoping Keelan Marion would be the guy that came back, and he left the program in like March. And so then you're thrust into the Parker Kingston experiment. And all of a sudden he leads the team in targets with 928 receiving yards. Like he came out of nowhere to make that happen. At this point, the offense is just kind of plug and play. Like, give me a guy that can catch and run a decent route, and you are going to have an 800-yard receiver in this offense. Like, it could be anyone. Over the last 7 years, I think BYU's thrown for 3,000 yards 6 times and had 7 different players lead the team in targets. It's just an offense thing. I don't think it really has anything to do with BYU having a true number one. Like, we're talking about from Puka Nacua to Dax Milne are the type of guys that have led the team in receiving. And now you actually have real talent in that wide receiver room. And the tight ends, like, dude, Walker Lyons and Roger Saliapaga, dogs. Dogs, I tell you, dogs. You might not even need 3 receivers to step up. You might only need 1 or 2 to be what you need them to be. JoJo, I think, is going to be that guy. Legend, I think, is going to be that guy. And then maybe Kyle Casper, he's just awesome in the red zone or something like that. And you just have the biggest lineup of all time with 240-pound Bear, 240-pound LJ, offset by 5 or 4 receivers that are all 6'5" and above. Nasty.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it. And here's the thing is he doesn't necessarily need to come in and be that guy from day one. We can ease Legend Glasgow into this role. Why? Because you have Kyle Casper, you have JoJo Phillips, you have Roger Saliapaga, and you have Walker Lyons. Like, you have guys that can come in and do enough to let Legend Glasgow get to a spot where he feels comfortable and kind of take on that code or that Parker Kingston role that he did late in the season, where let the defenses worry about the tight ends, let them worry about the 6'6" Kyle Casper, and then you sneak Legend Glasgow in there, you catch him off guard, on a wheel route from the slot. And
dude, think of those short, like those 3rd and 14 screen passes to Parker along the line of scrimmage that he'd take for touchdowns. Like, you think Legend can't do that? Like, Legend ran a 4.4 laser 40 at the same camp that Xavier Worthy ran a 4.4 laser 40. And Xavier Worthy set the combine record this last year. Like, Legend is fast, and he's also like 3 inches taller than Parker was. I'm thinking over on that 600.
I would take over as well. Speaking of stats, he's in the chat. BYU Stats Man.
Gosh,
it's also where we go for all our BYU stats needs. That's his website, cougararchive.com. I've been going ham on cougararchive.com as we've been recording this, trying to find the different stats, the different numbers, and putting together all the talking points that we butcher on this podcast at times. But We always get the best data, the best stats, the best numbers, everything from CougarArchive.com. And speaking of CougarArchive.com, our game of the day, Joe, do you want to take a stab in the dark of what year we are headed to for our game of the day? I will give you the hint that we will be featuring a game in which someone we talked about on this podcast today played in and had a role in. Any guesses? As I put
Ask
on
the
the
question one more
look.
time.
What year are we headed to for this game of the day? Someone we talked about on this episode played a role in this game. Time's up.
2007.
2007 is incorrect. We are going to 1994. Do you want to?
Kalani Sitake.
Kalani
Let's go. Is this the game
Sitake.
he scored in?
He did not have a career touchdown.
Ugh, lame.
So, but no rushing touchdowns. He did have one receiving touchdown, but no rushing touchdowns. He had 2 attempts for 39 yards, an average of 19.5 yards per carry, a long of 41 yards, which is great because he had 2 carries. One went for 41 yards and the other went for -2 yards. But coincidentally, 19.5 is also roughly what, in millions of dollars, what BYU spends on the BYU football roster. So let's get those numbers up. Let's get it closer to that 41 number that he had on his one attempt. Another interesting thing. So BYU on this day, September 10th, 1994, beat Air Force 45-21. As I'm sure all of you are asking, how many total yards did BYU have, and did they combine with Air Force 4? Well, certainly we have the answer thanks to BYU Statsman and CougarArchive.com. Total offense, 604 yards for BYU, 400 total yards for Air Force. Joe, do you think that there is a world that exists in which BYU plays Air Force today and those two teams combine for over 1,000 total yards?
I would have. Maybe I'm just feeling patriotic because I saw those clips online today of jets flying over Air Force's fall camp practices. I long for these days. I mean, the answer is no, absolutely not. This would never happen again. But I long for these days where it's just like completely opposite styles. You have air raid versus triple option, and no one can stop either team. I bet that was a religious experience to watch.
BYU in 2026 did not combine with an opponent for 1,000 yards in any of their games. In fact, I think the highest was in the 800s from what I've been able to tell. 826, I think, with Georgia Tech was the most. The craziest thing is if you talk about two different styles of offense, being the triple option and the air raid, their passing yards weren't crazy different, and their BYU actually outrushed Air Force by 120 yards, and yet they still combine for over 1,000 total yards. BYU football in the 80s and 90s was just a different beast, like 600 yards of total offense. BYU eclipsed 600 yards of total offense once in 2026, and that was week 1 against Portland State, and they held Portland State to 50 yards of total offense. These games must have just been insane to watch, just both teams going up and down the field.
I miss it.
Anything we missed? This is my last episode until we've got games, so I will record a video of my season prediction, but because we can't miss that.
Yeah.
Trevor missed tonight, so I feel like I have it one out.
The only constant you guys are going to have is me, and I apologize for that in advance, but it is what it is. We've come a long way since the start of this episode. We've grown old today.
90 minutes. Yeah, that's how you know it's football season. We only do 90 minutes when it's either football season or we're talking about we're going game by game in 2017 in the thick of the off season. So I'm glad that we're back. Fun fact, last game where BYU and their opponent had 1,000+ yards, Utah Tech in 2022. See, this is why we need the stats man in every single one of these episodes.
Can we just bring him on as like a co-host? We just like we treat him like Gene Steratore, where like we do most of the analysis and then we just go to him in the booth if we need some kind of stat lookup, or just
we needed him back in the
random player named like Quinn Gooch or Taggart Kruger.
Look, like I said, I'm gone the next 3 weeks. It might just be you. So whomever your co-hosts might be is purely up to you.
You're on Stats, man. We love you.
This, I think, shout out to everyone who tuned in. I think this was the most active chat we've ever had. So shout out to the fellas at 9:00 on a Wednesday joining for some Provo drama. And we're not talking about Provo's most eligible. We're talking about Brian Santiago and Kalani Sitake, and then we get to Bear and Legend Glasgow after that. But shout out to everyone that joined us. It was a blast.
Well, appreciate you, brother. Cougs by a billion.
Cougs by a billion, baby. Let's go.